So there's 5 categories of apps that I'm going to take you through in this video. We've got the Lubricating Jelly, the Note-taking Toolbox, the 4 essentials for getting stuff done, the Productive Socializing Suite, and finally the Content Creation Machine. Let's get into it. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Ali. I'm a doctor working in Cambridge, and on this channel, we share the principles, strategies, and tools that help us live happier, more productive lives. And one of the fundamental components of my productivity arsenal is the MacBook Pro. And in this video, I'm going to be talking you through lots of different apps that I've got to help supercharge my productivity, be more organized, get stuff done, and create content like an absolute machine. And let's start with category number 1, which is the Lubricating Jelly. And there are 2 apps in this list. By far the most important app, the app that I cannot live without on my Mac, is called Alfred. Now, Alfred is basically a replacement for the Spotlight search function on a Mac. So what I do is I hit Command Spacebar, and this Alfred window rocks up, and then I can do whatever I want using the Alfred window. And this is basically how I navigate my Mac. And it's a big part of why I'm so productive on my Mac, because I don't bother wasting time by moving the mouse around and by clicking on things, because that's a total waste of time. Instead, I use Alfred to find everything. So let's say I want to search Google. I would just go Command Spacebar, and we have searched Google. Let's say I don't want to do that. Let's say I want to find a file. Normally the process for finding a file would be an absolute ball ache, because you have to click on Finder. You'd have to go on like Google Drive, you'd have to click, and basically every time you want to open a file, you're wasting like a minute of your life. And that adds up over a long period of time to just be not a very pleasant experience at all. But with Alfred, you can do Command Spacebar, type into the window. You start off with a space, and now you can search for any file on your computer. Let's say I wanted to find the video of me singing a song from 2 years ago. I can just type in BUDA and, oh, here we go. Budapest 2018, July, and this is the file. Let's say I want to open an app. Rather than doing this whole pinch thingy and trying to find the app, or rather than unhiding the dock and clicking through the dock, which again would waste valuable seconds of my life every time, I just go on Alfred and I type in the first few letters of the app. Boom, sorted. It's just like an absolutely incredible invention. Find all of this stuff. And actually, if we look at my Alfred stats, which again I'm opening through Alfred usage, this is in the last 28 days. Since 21st August 2018, which was when I got this MacBook, Alfred has been used 20,830 times, on average 33.5 times a day. And whenever this was, about 2 weeks ago, I was on my computer a lot that day. I used Alfred 201 times. That saved at least maybe 10 minutes of my life. But if you can save 10 minutes every day when you're on the computer. Basically, the reason I love Alfred is that a big part of productivity when using a machine is trying to minimize the time between you thinking that you want to do something on the computer and then that thing being done. So if I think I want to Google something, I want to be able to Google it as quickly as possible. If I think I want to open a file or do some work or send an email, all that stuff needs to happen as efficiently as possible. Otherwise, I'm just wasting time. And Alfred is like the key lubricating jelly, which is, it just makes the whole process of using this Mac just infinitely smoother. And it is always the very first thing I ever install when I get a new computer. The second component of my lubricating jelly setup is an app called Moom. And Moom is fantastic because it basically lets you swipe windows to the sides of the screen. So if I open up Safari, I can drag it and it goes over there. If I open Notion, where I've got the plan for this video, I can drag it and it would go over there. And if I want to, I can actually do this with keyboard shortcuts. So let's open, I don't know, Bear, for example, and I can hit a shortcut key, and I've got keyboard shortcuts set up so that I can automatically kind of snap windows to their appropriate sections without really having to click anything. And this is particularly handy when I'm on my 49-inch ultra-wide monitor, because I've got different sort of shortcut setups to have like a triple window setup, to have a quadruple window setup, to have like a 6 window setup. There's all kind of different ways that you can use Moom. And it's just one of the ways in which, again, it's all about minimizing the time between thought and action. I don't want to have to drag a window to the side of the screen. I want to just be able to do a bang and bang keyboard shortcut and it just appears and I can get on with doing the thing that I want to be doing. All right, so the next category is the note-taking toolbox, and we've got 7 apps in this category. Now, people always ask me in YouTube comments and Instagram DMs and on the streets, Ali, why do you use so many note-taking apps? What the hell is wrong with you? Surely you're making more work for yourself by having all these note-taking apps. Shouldn't you just be focusing on taking notes rather than all this sort of stuff? But the way I think about this is that these apps are all just a toolbox. Apps are not useful in their own regard. They're useful because they're tools that let us accomplish something greater than that. So when it comes to using a computer, using my Mac, I consider myself a professional carpenter. And if you saw a professional carpenter with their toolbox, you would think, oh mate, why do you have 18 different screwdrivers? Don't you just need one screwdriver? And the carpenter would be like, bro, I'm a professional carpenter. Each screwdriver, yeah, fine, they're all screwdrivers, but they all serve a slightly different purpose. And for me, the reason I have 5 kind of active note-taking apps that I use is because they all do serve a different kind of purpose. We have different apps for everything. Like, why are we looking for this one ultimate holy grail note-taking app that does absolutely everything? it's all about embracing the toolbox. And so that's why I have so many note-taking apps. So the first one I want to talk about is Notion. Notion is one of my favorite apps of all time. I have made 5 videos about Notion on my YouTube channel, another like 7 or 8 videos about Notion on Workflow, my series on Nebula, more about that in a little bit. So I'm not going to talk about Notion too much, but I basically use it for project management for various things. So when it comes to video schedules, when it comes to online classes, when it comes to my website, book reviews, keeping track of the stuff that I enjoy, keeping track of Liz, Angus, and Christian, my team members, keeping track of basically I use Notion for so much stuff in my life. I even use it to keep track of my workouts and to every day, write something I'm grateful for. I've made loads of videos about that, so I'll put links to all of those down in the video description. But Notion is my note-taking app, mostly for project management. Now, recently I have started using, well, not recently, about 6 weeks ago, I started using another app. Now, this is an app called Roam Research, and my friend Thomas Frank has made a lovely video about Roam. Again, link in the video description about that. Roam Research is sort of a note-taking app, but it's for research. It's kind of for thinking. It's the app that I use for my thinking. So every day I would write a kind of daily note, and there's all sorts of features in Roam. So for example, I can say time currently filming the what's on my MacBook video. And now you saw that I put double square brackets here, and now what's on my MacBook has become a link. And Roam has a really interesting system of kind of linking. That basically means that as you're writing notes, you can easily link them to other notes. And ultimately, what that does, it gives you kind of a broad kind of graph overview of all of your notes. Basically, Roam is trying to replicate the way that knowledge is actually organized in our brains. It's not really organized in terms of notebooks and dividers and notes. It's more organized in terms of disparate things that are all linked to one another. And so Roam is amazing for that. It's way beyond the scope of this video to go in depth into Roam. But yeah, you can find loads of information on Thomas Frank's video. If you want to see a detailed look of how I use Roam, I've got 6 videos available on my workflow series on Nebula. Now, if you don't know, Nebula is a streaming platform that's made by me and a bunch of other of my creative friends. And on Nebula, I post exclusive videos that you won't find on YouTube, usually that are a little bit more nerdy, a little bit more niche. Like for example, spending an hour going over Roam and why I love it. That's a bit too niche for YouTube for now. And so I tend to post those sorts of videos on there that are a little bit too detailed to actually be put on YouTube, because YouTube, I like to kind of appeal to a wider audience. Anyway, at the moment, there's about 15-ish videos in my workflow series where I take you through my workflow for using these productivity apps in various different ways. And the easiest way to get access to Nebula for these workflow videos, along with a few other exclusives that I've got, along with a load of other exclusive videos from other creators, is to sign up to CuriosityStream, who are very kindly sponsoring this video. CuriosityStream is the world's leading documentary streaming subscription platform, founded by John Hendricks, who's the founder of the Discovery Channel. And on CuriosityStream, you can find documentaries covering health, business, science, technology, history, geography, basically anything you can think of. And the great thing is that if you sign up to CuriosityStream for $3 a month or $20 a year, which is absolutely nothing, you also get free access to Nebula. So this is literally the best deal in streaming. And so if you care about how I use all these apps kind of more specifically, a lot more niche, you should definitely do that. More details in the video description. Let's now move on with the video. So that was Roam and Notion. Let's now move on to Evernote, which I actually still use as a note-taking app. And you might be wondering why, because Evernote is old and bloated and stuff. But actually Evernote is fantastic because there is still no app that handles everything you throw at it just as well as Evernote does. So, if it's basically kind of the long-term memory for my second brain. So I use Notion for project management. I use Roam for thinking and research and things. But if there's ever anything I need to store for later, so for example, documents and letters and receipts and images and bookmarks, I can just chuck them into Evernote. So I've got this inbox, and there's a dot inbox that basically has everything in it. And then at some point, every couple of months, I will just organize these into the different notebooks. So these are kind of notebooks for various things that I'm interested in. It's just nice having Evernote as sort of this layer, the long-term memory layer of my second brain. And for example, if I'm writing notes on paper in my notebook, it's really hard to scan those into Roam because Roam's not very good at that, or Notion, which is not very good at that. But Evernote, just take a picture, chuck it in automatically. It just works absolutely amazingly. So that's what Evernote's used for. Fourthly, we have an app called Drafts. Now, Drafts is basically a very quick capture note-taking app. And I use Drafts when I need to take note of something kind of in the moment, but I can't be bothered to wait for Notion to load on iOS. Roam doesn't really have an iOS app yet. Evernote is a bit slow and bloated. Drafts is just amazing. Yeah, I can actually dictate stuff into Drafts from my Apple Watch. So for example, if I'm listening to a podcast in the car and I've got my watch on, I can just dictate some notes into it and then it'll come up on Drafts. And then every now and then I'll look through my Drafts inbox and I'll chuck stuff into Evernote or chuck stuff into Notion or chuck stuff into Roam, kind of depending on what the stuff is. So Drafts is my tool for quick capture. It's excellent for that. And then we have Notability, which is actually the app that I use more often than not on the iPad, because Notability is the best app for handwritten note-taking. And at some point I'll be doing a comparison between Notability and GoodNotes, but basically I prefer Notability. It's good for handwriting. I don't often use the Mac version, but it's nice having it on my Mac just in case I need to bring up my notes. So for example, I will often, make notes about videos that I want to do, if I'm on a plane or if I'm just kind of figuring stuff out. I will take those notes handwritten using the iPad Pro and Apple Pencil, and then they're in Notability, and then I can kind of do whatever I want with them. Sometimes I put these into Notion as screenshots, sometimes I put them into Room as typed up, sometimes I put them into Evernote. It kind of depends, but this is just another part of the toolbox. But this is how I deal with handwritten information, because Roam, Notion, and Evernote are not very good at the handwriting side of things. Finally, there are two more that I want to talk about, and that is Bear and Ulysses. Ulysses is pretty good as like a general writing thing, and Bear used to be my kind of general writing app where I would take notes on Bear, but Drafts has sort of replaced the functionality of Bear for me. And ever since I started using Roam, I've kind of stopped using Ulysses because there's not an easy way to link stuff together on Ulysses. So I'm still trying to figure out if I need these two apps and if there's a way for them to fit into my workflow. But at the moment, I don't really use Bear and Ulysses that much. So those were the apps in my note-taking toolbox. Let's now move on to the 4 essentials that everyone needs to get things done. And that is a to-do list manager, an email client, a file system, and a calendar. And so let's go through those in turn. So the app that I use for my to-do list is Things 3. I've experimented with a lot of these over the years, but the one that I ultimately kind of keep going back to is Things 3. And Things is just so nice. It's one of the most beautifully designed Mac and iOS and iPadOS apps that I've ever used in my life. It's just such an absolute joy. So on the side, you've got these areas. So I've got LifeOS, I've got health, I've got people, I've got videos, I've got hustle, medicine, ingestion, which is kind of where I keep track of content that I need to watch, music, hobbies, and a bucket list. So these are kind of areas of my life. And then within these areas, you can have projects. So we've got a medical application guide, we've got Liberty Medics, which is this thing that I'm working on. Throughout the day, what I do is I add stuff into my inbox. So for example, with a hotkey, Control Spacebar, I can type in a new to-do. And then that goes into my inbox. Or let's say I'm on my friend Kei's website about productivity, and I want to kind of make a note of something to do with that. What I can do is I can do Control Shift Spacebar, and it automatically creates a new to-do, but it creates it with the context. So it automatically links to the website that I was on or whatever app I'm in, which is just really handy. So contact Kei about doing another video. That would be an easy way to add stuff to Things. And then I don't really think about where it goes in Things. It just goes in my inbox. And then once a day in the mornings, I'll usually go through my inbox and kind of categorize stuff into the different projects. So this one I can do Command Shift M, which is a hotkey. Hotkeys are really important. Let's put that into videos, fine. And let's stop being a total waste man. We can move that into LifeOS. Everyone can build a Twitter audience. This is for hustle. Let's sort of study an industry video and chat to Rohan about articles. That's this one. So if I want, I can use the keyboard. If I want, I can use the mouse. If I can drag stuff on my iPad, on my iPhone, it's just like really nice. And this is how I kind of keep track of my to-dos. And the way that I do this is that every day, the stuff that I need to do is I mark as today. And that's only the stuff that I absolutely have to get done on a given day. But if I finish those things, then what I do is I've got this anytime list where stuff doesn't have a deadline, because most of the stuff I do doesn't really have a deadline. And so I'll dip into my anytime list to kind of do more things. And then I've got a someday list, which is stuff that I don't want to do in a particular week. It doesn't really matter what to-do list app you use as long as you have one. I've tried out Todoist over the years. I haven't really tried out OmniFocus. It's a bit too much, I think. So yeah, that's my note-taking app. Right, secondly, everyone needs an email client. And the one that I use is called Superhuman. Superhuman, unfortunately, is a Gmail client that costs $30 a month. It's worth it for me because I spend a lot of time on emails, and it's like by far the fastest email experience I've ever used in my life. So Superhuman is great. As long as you have some kind of email client, it doesn't really matter what it is. Like you can easily get by just using Gmail on Safari or Chrome, or you using Spark Mail, or using, I don't know, Outlook, or there's all sorts of email clients. I have tried like at least 10 of them over the last few years. And since I discovered Superhuman, I've never really looked back. So that is very nice. Thirdly, everyone needs a calendar, and the one that I use is Fantastical or Fantastical, mostly because it's got nice natural language processing, and I've been using Fantastical for a few years now. It is a bit expensive, but hey, I have no qualms with paying for apps that improve my life. So what I can do with Fantastical is it's actually got an Alfred integration. So I can write cal, and it'll automatically recognize all the different components within that. And actually I can send them a calendar invite, add event, press enter, whatever. And it's a very easy way for me to add stuff to my calendar without really thinking about it. And of course, they've got an app for iOS and iPad OS as well, and even the Apple Watch. So it's a nice app that integrates very nicely with the Apple ecosystem. And finally, everyone needs some kind of cloud storage solution. That sounds very enterprising, lol. If you're not currently using a cloud storage thing, you're definitely living life completely wrong, because you don't want to be one of those people that has everything important on your hard drive and then for some reason your computer breaks or gets stolen. Like basically for me, my entire life is on Google Drive, and Google Drive is what I use for this. So I have my Google Drive folder, and within Google Drive, I've got like a ton of folders, and basically I think I'm using like 4 terabytes of Google Drive storage space just because of all the stuff that I've got in it. And I also have a Google Drive business account for my business stuff that I share with my team members, where we can upload videos and download videos, and basically like everything is organized through Google Drive. That's what I'd recommend. I've tried out Dropbox. I kind of prefer Google Drive. It's got nice apps. It kind of works. But again, it doesn't really matter what specifically you use as long as you're using some kind of cloud storage thingy. All right, let's now talk about 5 apps in the productive socializing suite. So what does this mean? So basically, like, socializing is important. Relationships are the most important thing in the world. But it's nice to be able to socialize in a productive fashion. It is not productive replying to messages from my phone, because I type at 150 words per minute on my laptop, but I type at like 50 words per minute on my phone. It's just, you know, night and day difference between how efficient I can be with chatting to people on my phone versus on my laptop. So basically, I want to be like, anytime someone sends me a message, I want to be able to reply to it from my Mac. So the most important app for this is WhatsApp Web. So again, I'm opening with Alfred. If someone sends me a WhatsApp message, I've got like all my group chats, all my chats, like it just makes perfect sense to be able to reply to it from my Mac rather than having to reply to it from WhatsApp. And it absolutely amazes me how many people don't know that this is a feature of WhatsApp. Like you can just quadruple the number of people that you can respond to in a given amount of time just by using WhatsApp Web. It's incredible. We also have iMessage, or rather Messages, I think it's called these days. And again, I never reply to iMessages from my phone unless I'm not at my desk, and I'm always at my desk. So I can always reply to iMessages from my Mac. And this is one of the main reasons why I love the Apple ecosystem, is because stuff like this just works so seamlessly together. I think Android has been trying for the last few years to create some sort of unified messaging platform that lets you reply to text messages from your computer. But so far, as I know, it hasn't worked. Let me know in the comments if something miraculously has changed. But yeah, iMessage is fantastic. Most of my friends use iPhones, so it's so much easier for us to message each other with iMessage rather than having to send an actual text or a WhatsApp message. So yeah, the fact that Messages is available on desktop is fantastic. Thirdly, we have Slack. Now I use Slack for a load of things. So I use Slack to chat with my team members, Angus, Christian, and Liz, about various things. And that's how we keep track of all our projects, all the stuff that we're working on. But I'm also part of a few different Slack groups. The public ones that I'd recommend you join are firstly Forte Labs. I'm not sure how public this is, but you should join Forte Labs. This is run by my internet friend, Tiago Forte, who runs an online course called Building a Second Brain, which is very good. And a one called Rad Reads by Kei He, who recently featured on this YouTube channel. And I think these Slack teams are open to everyone. But let's look at Rad Reads, for example. I'm sure he won't mind me sharing this. You know, announcements, books, entrepreneurship, financial independence, intros, miscellaneous, money, newsletters, productivity, promote feedback. Like, it's just like a bunch of cool people doing interesting things, joining this like Slack team. So it sort of feels almost like a community. And then there's Standard, which is my YouTube agency. There's Pretty Okay YouTubers, which is a bunch of other YouTubers. And then there's the A-Team, which is what I call my kind of squad. So I use Slack many hours each day just to kind of chat to people. Number 4, I guess, would be Discord. I don't really use Discord a huge amount. I tried setting up like a sort of server for my fans, but it just had way too many people to keep up with. And I found that I was just never logging into Discord just because I'm not a fan of how the app works. You can't really have threaded replies. It feels, and no offense to anyone who uses Discord, but it feels like an app for kids, whereas Slack feels like an app for grown-ups. Like, people have grown-up chats on Slack. People have kiddie chats on Discord. And I'm not like bashing the kids or anything, you know, Discord is fine. And you know, these guys have created this new like The Bunker group. I'll put a link in the video description if you want to join it. So occasionally I'll chat to people on here, but in general, I prefer to use Slack for most things because it's just a little bit more, it's a bit more legit. It's not like general chit chat about like, I mean, it can be like Slack does have channels for like gaming and discussing general chit chat, but it's just not as spammy as Discord is. Like, firstly, in terms of the user interface, but also in terms of like Slack is designed to be an app for work, whereas Discord is designed to be an app for gamers to just kind of chat. The kind of vibe that you get on these two different apps is markedly different. Like, people take Slack more seriously than they take Discord. You wouldn't get people spamming on Slack because it's considered unprofessional and not legit, whereas you get too many people spamming on Discord. So I don't use Discord a huge amount, but you know, I'm part of the server and occasionally to chat to people on it. And finally, I've got Zoom and Skype, which is not particularly interesting. So let's move on to the final category, and that is the apps in my content creation machine. I think that's what I called it at the start of the video. The most important app in here is Final Cut Pro, is the app that I use for editing. Been using Final Cut for the last 3 years, basically. I've created a class on Skillshare about how to edit in Final Cut. These days, I don't really do a lot of my own editing anymore, but I will still dabble with Final Cut occasionally if I need to do a few quick edits to something that someone else has made, or if I'm making a video of myself singing for Instagram. So like actually earlier today when I was procrastinating from filming this video, I picked up the guitar and I filmed myself singing American Pie by Don McLean and edited it in Final Cut, and now it's on Instagram and on IGTV or whatever. But yeah, Final Cut is amazing. I'll put a link in the video description to my Skillshare class on it if you want to learn Final Cut. On top of Final Cut, as part of the content creation machine, we have Logic Pro 10. I use Logic for 2 things. Firstly, and most importantly, it's editing my weekly podcast. Me and my brother, if you didn't know, have a weekly podcast called Not Overthinking that you can find on all podcast platforms, blah, blah, blah. And I use Logic to just kind of tweak the sounds a bit and to cut out all the silences so that it feels like a more coherent video than both of us pausing a lot to kind of gather our thoughts. So I use Logic for that. And I'm also trying to get into music production. So I've started dabbling with Logic in terms of arranging covers of popular songs, which is something I want to dabble with a little bit more. Then we have Screenflow, which is the very app that I'm actually using to record this screencast right now. Screenflow is the best thing that I found on the Mac for doing screencasts, and you can zoom into stuff nicely. So I use Screenflow for all of my screencasts and tutorials and things. We also have Ecamm, which is my new favorite app for live streaming. So I've got a few different screens set up, and things like Skype automatically connect with Ecamm. So for example, I recently did a live stream with Noah Kagan, from okdork.com, and that worked out really nicely because Ecamm is just so beautiful to use on a Mac. I think it's $80, but absolutely worth every penny. And finally, I subscribe to the Adobe Creative Cloud, the whole package. The ones that I use most often are Adobe Audition. I use that to extend soundtracks for videos and to do audio editing a little bit. I dabble with Photoshop and Illustrator. I used to use Photoshop a lot more back in the day when I was super into web design and graphic design, but these days I don't really do a lot of that. But even so, it's still nice to have Photoshop and Illustrator to be able to mock up a quick logo for a project or just kind of put some ideas onto some kind of graphic design package. So like I said before, if you want to hear more details about how I use Roam, how I use Notion, how I use Instapaper and Readwise and Evernote and Castro and like a few different aspects of my workflow, that's all available on Nebula, which you can sign up to with a Curiosity Stream trial, link in the video description, more details there. If you like this video, you might also like to check out my video on what apps I've got on my iPad, because I actually use a lot of the same apps on my Mac as on my iPad. And in that video, I talk about kind of 5 different categories of apps that are slightly different to these ones and how that fits in with my life. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.